we shouldn't be aiming for happiness, but it's hard on a day-to-day basis when you think like, I'd like to be a bit more happier right now, but then you kind of rationalize yourself out of it and you say, well, no, because there's these disadvantages. Like it doesn't necessarily equate to meaning, and like you should be enjoying the struggle, and you like pleasure is just the way that you can get controlled, and it's not, you're not, when you look back on your life, you're not going to appreciate the pleasure. You're going to look at where you've suffered. Where do you kind of balance yourself on like a day-to-day between the two, do you think?
It's a really good question. I mean, it's a really, really good question. And it's not something that can be solved in an hour-long podcast, but it's something that we think about and we grapple with for maybe our entire lives. What does it mean to actually be happy, and is aiming for that even what we should be doing? And does that even bring happiness, aiming for it? Or is it some ineffable concept that we try and grasp at, but it's just like grasping at a cloud? You know, our fingers just fall through. I would say my answer is, I look at it from like a evolutionary biology perspective. Right? What is our psychological machinery built for? And the answer to that is not happiness. The answer to that is survival and reproduction, if you look at it from that perspective. Our brain wants us to be taking on challenge and surviving through it, and pushing ourselves to acquire resources, and then, you know, achieve a level of status, to then be at the top of the hierarchy socially, to have access to mates and more resources. And they're the two kind of metrics that our minds are focused on. Happiness is not really what it's looking for. Happiness is maybe a byproduct when you see yourself moving towards one or both of those things. And that's a good thing to understand. You know, there's a quote from, I'm afraid the person's name eludes me at the moment, but the quote is something like, your brain isn't wired to be happy. Your brain is wired for you to try really hard. And that's a nice way of framing it. And so where should we put our aims? Well, aim for something worthwhile, I think. And then happiness comes as a byproduct of you seeing yourself moving towards that worthwhile aim. That's maybe my best definition right now. The other part of it is something that is actually one of your quotes that I still think about. Is you said, what we want is we want depth in the present moment. That's the kind of everyday happiness that you can achieve, I think. It's not the kind of happiness of like when you make it in whatever thing you've been striving for years. It's the kind of happiness that you can have when you sip a cup of coffee on a morning, or you play one of your favorite songs at the end of the day to go to sleep at night, or you go for a drive with a friend and you have a great conversation and you see the countryside and the rolling hills around you, and you really connect with that experience. You know, you are one with the fabric of your reality. That's the kind of everyday happiness you can find. That's not going to be a great rush. It's not going to be like the dopamine hit when you see that you've gained X number of followers, or you've got a promotion at work, or you've bought yourself a new piece of equipment because of the work that you've put in, whatever. It's a subtle happiness, but it's maybe a contentment is the right word to use. So to summarize, what I'd say is strive for something worthwhile, because that will improve your life, and it will improve the way you interact with the world and the person you become. And as a byproduct of that pursuit, I think you find happiness along the way. Or maybe meaning is a better way of thinking about that kind of happiness. And the second point is, be mindful enough to connect with the present moment on a deep level, and that brings a level of contentment that I think people will benefit from having more of.
Well, Peterson said it's a nice byproduct. And that's kind of where it should be experienced. So I also found this quite interesting. I remember about a month ago, my friend Albin, who's the main person I hang out with at uni, he said that you're more happy than most of my friends on a daily basis. And I thought that was interesting, because me and Happy don't really, I'm not like normally the happiest, most energetic person in the room necessarily, but so in the context, like him and his friends kind of go out and stuff quite a lot, and it's kind of what we said before, I think, of they sacrifice the happiness of the night. No, they sacrifice the happiness, they steal happiness from the next day to have it on that night. And so what I kind of thought about it was that, because my baseline is always very steady, and therefore there's a more kind of dopamine spiky, and that kind of just suggests that the pleasure just doesn't last, and therefore like their baseline, like mine just kind of runs on the little bits of fulfillment that I can take. Therefore, like maybe I'm not necessarily the happiest person, but I am fulfilled, and then that's kind of what showed. That's what I think he could see.
But what I gather from that is you have stuff to do. And so you might not be experiencing like exhilaration of going to a nightclub if that's what you want to do or whatever, right? You're not experiencing like a huge level of arousal every so often like they do when they go out. And I'm not using arousal in any sexual term there. I mean just like physiological stimulation, like dopamine hit, going out drinking, all that kind of stuff like people do. You have like tasks to complete that mean something to you, right? And there's a level of faith in that you hope that doing these tasks on a daily basis, even though they can be mundane and not necessarily exhilarating, they're leading to something that is fundamentally good, a better future. So that will give some kind of nice baseline level of contentment of like, if you do those tasks and they're not horrific, then you're building something better for the future. Whereas the more immediate gratification pathways to feeling good feel great in the moment, but you're sacrificing that hope for what the future could be. No one's built a better life for themselves going out and drinking. There's a time and a place for it. It's fun with your friends, and you're able to relax and let your hair down and listen to good tunes and put yourself in a different state of consciousness. Like, fair enough. You got the free will and the agency to do that. But you can't say that it's going to benefit you in 5 years' time. And that's something that I think we should focus on. Not completely, not wholeheartedly, like that's all you think about, but bargaining with your future self and giving him the opportunity to be in a better position is a good thing.